All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here talking real music and real tragedy 43 years ago today, and doing it in real time for a few real people out there, just like you and just like me. All right, so the tragedy of John Lennon's death. How could John Lennon live like so out there, just out there in the open? That's what is kind of mind-boggling. I know the world was a different place 43 years ago. By the way, contrary to popular belief, I was alive in 1980. A lot of people look at me and think, there's no way he's that old. but you'd be wrong, because I was there. Not there, present, like in New York City when this happened, but watching Monday Night Football when Howard Cosell tells the audience that John Lennon has been shot and has been pronounced dead, which was devastating news. I mean, look, I wasn't the biggest John Lennon fan. All right. Didn't get into Imagine There's No Heaven. You know, the Imagine song ruined it for me. It just did. Because the song was so human focused. It's like, we can do this. We don't need God. We don't need religion. We don't need politics. We don't need anything. We just don't need any borders, right? You don't need languages. I don't know. I don't think he said all of these things, but the general gist of the song is that, I'm a dreamer. I can dream. Wouldn't it be nice? All right. Yeah, it would be nice. But that philosophy, all right, he's living in a super high profile location in New York City. It's 10:30 at night. Where is his bodyguard, right? Why is he going out on his own? Just not a good idea. And this stalker, this guy, Mark David Chapman, who has all of these mental health problems, who was jealous of John Lennon. This is what he said at a parole hearing back in 2020. My thinking was, he has all of this money, lives in this beautiful apartment. Again, why is John Lennon living in I know in New York City, apartments are a big deal, but why doesn't he have some sprawling house somewhere way out in the country? I mean, I don't know. I don't understand. Most rock stars, if they can afford it, they live in a castle somewhere up in the hills, it's Scotland or something. You know, it's just, why is he living in New York City, one of the most dangerous places on the planet? Anyway, Chapman and Lennon had met earlier in the day that he was shot, when the Beatles fan obtained his autograph on a copy of the album Double Fantasy, which had just come out. And by the way, which was a real strong album. It was a great comeback album for John Lennon, very mature, very good songwriting on it. And it's got my favorite Lennon material, solo John Lennon material. I'll say that. So he's jealous. And he added here, I assassinated him because he was very, very, very famous. And that's the only reason. Okay. Well, you know, and then you had the following year, you had John Hinckley, who shot President Reagan, didn't succeed in killing him, but I think he missed him by like an inch. The bullet lodged right near Reagan's heart. So again, I don't know if that was more copycat in nature. I think Hinckley had this thing for Jodie Foster and thought that Jodie Foster would be impressed if he shot President Reagan. Man, did all of this give peace a chance stuff? Which, again, I pray for peace every day. I pray for peace in the Middle East. I pray for peace around the world. And yeah, we should give peace a chance, but we shouldn't be glib about the dangers of this world. I think there needs to be a balance. If somebody wants to kill you, you need to stand up to that. You can't just sit there and take it. Otherwise, you're going to be dead. It just is a little bit mind-boggling that a lot of people who had that philosophy. What if John Lennon had a firearm? I know. How preposterous, right? That John Lennon would have a firearm. Maybe he wouldn't have been able to react in time. Based on his songwriting, it's highly unlikely he'd have a firearm, right? But this guy fired 4 shots into John Lennon. It's pretty scary how severe that was. The Washington Post reported that the medical examiner in New York City, Dr. Elliot Gross, said Lennon's death was caused by gunshot wounds, massive hemorrhaging, and shock. He was shot twice in the back and twice in the shoulder with a .38 caliber pistol. So this guy got off 4 shots, and it was 10:50 at night. And the death occurred within a very short time, according to Gross, who did the autopsy. Lennon essentially had no pulse when he arrived at the hospital. So Mark David Chapman, he was an out-of-work security guard. He was living in Hawaii. He pleaded guilty to shooting Lennon back in June of 1981. He reportedly confessed just moments after the incident, telling the panicked doorman, "I just shot John Lennon." This is according to the Washington Post. So this guy, in his debilitated mental health condition, told the doorman that he had just shot John Lennon. He wanted everybody to look at him. He also went on to talk about how it made him angry and jealous because John Lennon had a great life. He was living in this great apartment, and that was enough to push this guy over the edge. So it's just bizarre that this happened. I'm not going to say that John Lennon's life and what he believed in contributed to this, but it certainly didn't help. It certainly didn't help. You've got rap stars and rock stars and all these people today walking around with an entourage. And I think it's excessive most of the time because they basically are doing it to showboat and say, "Hey, look at me. I've got a whole group of people surrounding me here." But John Lennon, was too trusting. He was living in New York City. And John, you'd still be around most likely, unless something else got to you. But, we still have Paul and we still have Ringo. George, unfortunately, probably smoked too much. Otherwise, he might still be here. I don't know. The bottom line is this didn't have to happen. Like so many other tragedies, they don't have to happen. And it puts the focus again on mental health problems. This guy is in jail. He's not repentant. He still celebrates the fact that he did this, and hence that's why he hasn't gotten out on parole, where I believe John Hinckley actually got out not too long ago. Do I trust John Hinckley? Of course not. These guys should probably be locked up for the rest of their lives. And some people would argue that maybe the death penalty might have been appropriate for either one of these guys. It certainly wouldn't have looked good, though, that John Lennon's killer is getting the death penalty after John Lennon's life was basically talking about peace all the time, and maybe not that kind of peace, maybe more when it comes to war and countries going to war with one another versus the individual problems that people face on a daily basis, where people have the absolute right to defend themselves in this situation, or somebody robbing your house or whatever. I mean, you don't want to kill anybody, but maybe you can neutralize the shooter without killing them. But if it's you against them, you have to make a decision. And in this case, John Lennon just going out on the town at 10:50 at night, and this guy was waiting for him the whole time. Had Lennon sign his album hours before that. Just wacky stuff. So, in any event, 43 years ago, I mean, it kind of does seem like a very long time ago, and the whole nation was devastated. And this is a guy who was probably a little more popular in the UK than in the States, but he had made his home here. And I think a lot of people connected with him more because he did that. So, in a way, yeah, live in America. That's fine. That would be a good promotional tool if you want to, play concerts in the United States and you want to embrace America as your new home. But maybe, buy some mansion out in the Connecticut hills somewhere, where if you want to go to New York City, you're close by. You can have somebody take you in a car, a chauffeur. Don't drive yourself. I mean, I get it. 43 years ago, things were much different than they are now. But if you're a rock star, you might as well act like a rock star, and you might as well have the security and the protection that rock stars normally get. So that's it. Still super sad. Who knows what John Lennon would have done during the 1980s as far as writing new material. Apparently, there was kind of a Beatles reunion in the works. And if John were still here during that time frame, you never know what could have happened with George still being around. But we didn't get to see that. Every fan on the planet up until that moment believed that the Beatles would someday get back together again, or they were rooting for it, or it was always being talked about. It was always being joked on radio stations, just DJs holding out hope. I remember because I was there. And after that, we knew it was over. And I know it shouldn't just be about the music legacy, but yeah, that's that put that whole thing to bed. All right, folks, that's the video. Sad day in music history, December 8th, 1980. It might have been the day the music died again. I don't know. Some people, I think, believe that, but depends on who your favorite musicians are. You don't get much higher up the food chain than the great John Lennon. Whether I agreed with him on everything, which I didn't, it's hard to just dismiss John Lennon as, he basically was the guy who got the Beatles together. I mean, he was the catalyst that got everybody in the room, the organizer. Maybe Paul McCartney became more alpha male as time went on, but it's a lot like Glenn Frey got the Eagles together, and then maybe Don Henley became more alpha male and was the leader. But yeah, no John Lennon, no Beatles. So there you have it. I'm done. Thanks for watching. God bless. And yeah, continue to pray for peace in the Middle East and around the world. And we need to do stuff to address the mental health crisis in this country and really all over the world.